Hello fam, how are you doing? My name is C.S. Williams, the radio apprentice, and you're listening to Oral Vault Radio, and this is my live podcast. So fam, for the reason of music and other kind of entertainment, we've decided to create another stream for talk only. This is going to be 24 hours talk, which means that everything we get to talk about, everything you get to talk about, everything we all get to talk about, we'll just keep going 24 hours. So I know for sure that a whole lot of us wants to enjoy music and enjoy some of the most interesting things on radio and amazing stuff too. And so therefore we have decided to create a stream for live podcasts only. So it's only when I have to talk to you live on air I will get to be here. But then if you want to listen to my previous podcast, or if you want to listen to our radio podcast, podcast replays, perhaps you can actually go to social media handles. So where you don't want to use the social media handles now, you can now go to Oral Vault Talk Radio. Okay, that way you can get to listen to everything and however, whenever, everything is scheduled as it should be. Okay, so that is how the improvement has been made. So therefore, maybe with time, then we can now incorporate everything in one place. When you're now used to listening to talk more than you're used to music, of which that is never going to be possible because we live for music and we enjoy music. Okay, so that's the reason why we have considered that, and for that reason we have decided to share the workload. Okay, our Vault Radio 1 would be about everything. Okay, scheduled for everything, the music, the talk, the podcast, everything. Then our Vault Talk Radio would be basic to music only. Would be basic to talk only. Okay, talk only. Stay tuned, guys. I'll be right back. So fam, basic to me tonight. This is about what we get to listen to over time, what people get to say over time. And then because we have gotten used to paying attention to what people would say and paying attention to certain kind of advice even when we don't want to. You know, there's something about not wanting to listen to something, and then you just want to listen to it so that you can figure out what this person is saying. It might just be bullshit, like you thought about it, but then you want to know what the bullshit is about. So you end up paying attention to listen to something that you're not meant to listen to. So even when you don't want to implement that thing, just because you listen to it, you get to think about it 1 week later or 2 weeks later. Maybe some kind of advice against someone that maybe would upset you in the future. And it's not something that's supposed to make sense to you in the beginning. But then you just listen to it like you want to listen to this shit. And just get to listen to this person talk. And then all of a sudden, 1 week later, 1 month later, you're playing that role. Most things just have a way of influencing us. So it's quite possible that you don't want it, but then you get to do it because you heard about it, and then you blame it all on circumstance. So it's something that we can get over. But then there's something they call influence, and that's quite unique, especially when you think it's that common. It's not. It's quite unique, especially in the way it tries to get into our head and change things. Okay, you'll get to understand where I'm headed right now, because when it comes to talk like this, it's always very huge. So you just have to take a bite and stay there. Maybe keep chewing it to the end of the day, which is what we're going to do. Okay, you just stay tuned. I will just give you a hint where I'm headed. Stay tuned. So fam, you're welcome back. My name is C.S. Williams, the radio apprentice, and you're listening to Oral Vault Radio, and this is my live podcast. Okay, going back now to let you understand where I'm headed tonight. It's about the things we get to hear when it comes to other people's attributes to life and living. Okay? Some people come to tell you their experiences, how they manage things, how they do things, how they manage this person, how they manage that person. They try to tell you how other people think. So they give you some kind of insight on how a lady thinks or how a man thinks. And then they come to give you insights about how a kid thinks, about how an adult thinks. Okay? And then you just, all of a sudden, you're beginning to wrap your head around their thoughts and wrap your head around their experiences and wrap your head around their definitions of things. And then you go as far as trying to push it towards the people whom you see, whom you're dealing with, whom you're about to meet, people you're about to do business with, people you're about to communicate with, people you're about to mingle with. And then all of a sudden, it's not just the thing, it's not the same way. But then because you've heard, because you've tried to implement, because you've been assured that that is how they think, that is what they do, that is how things work. You just want to insert it in the whole living thing, and then you end up making a very huge mistake. In some way, it works. Some other person will give you testimony, it works. But then, what have you been able to think? How have you been able to change it? Because you can't change the fact that some other people would come again and give the downside of it. Now, what have you been able to share? Have you been able to pay attention to the other side of the story said by someone else, told by someone else? Have you been able to? Now, it still has to do with what we listen to every day, what we pay attention to, and the kind of people we follow to give us certain kind of advice, the kind of people we follow to give us their insights, the kind of people we follow to tell us what their opinions are. And then even when you don't want to listen to them, even when they don't sound cool to you, you end up listening to them because you want to listen to their shit. And then at the end of the day, you end up doing that thing. How about that? Okay, it's now like about, let me give for example, so you know what I'm saying. A lady, you're having a fracas with a lady, you're having an argument with a lady, and then they tell you, okay, say certain things to her, and it's going to melt her. Say certain things to her, and she's going to think twice. Say certain things to her, and she's going to think mild. Yeah, it might have worked for certain people, and then they come out and give so much assurance that don't worry. As soon as you say that to her, she's cool. As soon as you do this to her, she's cool. As soon as you try to do this to her, she's okay. It would end arguments, it would end the quarrel, it would end the fracas, it would end everything that is not supposed to go well at that point in time. It would just change the atmosphere and give some kind of romantic rainfall, and everything will be alright. Now, that is a testimony that has been told by one person and assured by the other, and end up being implemented by the latter, who is going to get into trouble shortly. So you do all of that, and then they tell you, for example, let me tell you about the latter is going to get into trouble now. You have a fracas with a lady, you have an argument. Something that is supposed to last for a while until the conversation is built, something that is not supposed to be mended, but that has to be fixed somehow. And then you end up listening to some people tell you that you should try and give her a hug, or you should try and force something through. And you don't even know that everyone has the limit to how pissed they can be, or they have a limit to how penetrative you can be. And then you end up trying to be the guy in the romantic picture, and end up being sued for taking advantage of their no consent rule. No consent rule. And then because it's worked for some other people, they've done it and it worked like, okay, like magic. Just do it and she's going to stop talking. Just do it, she's going to stop arguing. Just do it, she's going to stop it. And then you end up doing it and you get into deeper shit. And then you are being remanded for no consent. So what's that going to be about? So sometimes when you want to do things, and sometimes when you want to listen to certain things, especially when it has to do with the subject matter, you need to pay attention to the both side of the story. Not just the story told by one person as a testimony, the story that is told by another countering the other. That way you're very sure of what you're about to do. That way you're certain about that thing you want to do that is supposed to work rather than take the other that is meant to be for someone else. Okay? There's something about wisdom. It's still in everybody. The only thing that we get to do most of the time is to try and pick other people's experiences to make ours better. But we're not meant to carry theirs verbatim and insert it into something that we're supposed to deal with. Because it always ends up giving trouble. It's like carrying a fitting from a Ford to a Toyota. But then you can actually narrate the trouble that the Ford has been given or the other car has been given to the other one that's about to be fixed. And you say, okay, I felt like this when I drove it. And so therefore you might just have to check it and see if it's that same thing. You might check it's not the same. You might check it might be similar because they're both engines. But then you cannot carry the part for this one to fix the other. You can't carry every experience you have for this one to fix the other. But you can actually use your instincts to match the advice and see how you can incorporate it with what you're already thinking. That way you have a focus. That way you have a plan. That way it's original, that you thought about it and it's meant to work for you. So as much as we cannot do without paying attention, as much as we cannot do without flipping through our phones and watching videos and listening to radio and listening to people talk, right? As much as we cannot do without all of that, because even when you don't want to do them, boredom would push you to do them. Okay, and even when you try to run away from the things of life that's right before you, somehow you get to be engrossed in them. As much as we don't want to do all of these things, the best thing to do is to listen, the best thing to do is to pay attention, and the most ultimate thing to do is to make sure that we have some target in our head, some plan in our head to be able to bring these ones together and make them better. So if you want to listen good. If you want to pay attention good. And if you want to implement, insert wisdom. Okay? That's the most important thing. Use wisdom. My name is C.S. Williams, the Radio Apprentice, and you're listening to Oral Vault Radio, and this is my live podcast. Stay tuned, guys. I'll be right back. In case you need to keep in touch with me, or you need to keep in touch with us, and you want to join my conversation, our conversation, okay, you can actually go to radiolive.oralvault.com. That place you can listen to our previous live podcasts, and you can follow the replays. Okay, you can listen to this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast: iTunes, iTunes podcasts, wherever it is you listen to your podcast, you can get ours there. Okay, or you can go to our Facebook handle at Oral Vault Radio, or you can find me, the Radio Apprentice. That way you get to keep in touch, and we get to be with you every now and then. You just stay tuned. I'll be right back. I need to take a drink, and then when I get back, we're just going to have a few seconds of talk, and then I'm going to roll you to my playlist that I made recently. I just hope you like it. It's still surrounded in old school, and although I'm not very certain what your genre would be, but then I hope you like it.